Welcome to the Tech Shift F9 podcast, hosted by yours truly, Maurizio Rafona. How do people juggle different interests and feel accomplished in both? This week we'll find out as we speak with Salima Nadira, a Singaporean currently traveling North America, who's been running two careers in parallel, one in music as a songwriter and performer, and one in technology as a community builder at Airboxr, a data automation platform for direct-to-consumer brands. Careers in creative fields sometimes are seen as running down a completely different path to careers in business. And success in a creative field takes time, often pushing people to make tough choices. This week's guest is proof of how grit, talent, and tenacity can help determined people pursue different careers and achieve success in both. Salima, welcome to Tech Shift F9. I'm really very excited about having you on this week's show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maurizio. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm fascinated by the eclectic career interests and experience that you have, Salima. So in your music career as a content producer, how and how much is technology actually helping you out with your day-to-day work?
I think, in this day and age, technology is in everything that we do. As a content creator, if you're not up to date with the most latest software, you're really missing out, to be honest. Nowadays, there's a lot of video editing software that makes it super easy for people to, create things on their phones. And I've been also picking up some of those. And also, of course, just Zoom for collaboration. I do a lot of collaborative content creation, the music DAW, the digital audio workstation that we use for electronic music or modern recorded music. You'll be surprised, but Google Documents, I use that a lot.
Fair enough.
You wouldn't imagine, but yeah, Google Documents is really useful. Yeah, just all kinds of things. You need a full suite of tools if you want to be an independent artist or do any kind of remote work.
I have the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, that in the music industry, there is a section of old school artists who really love vinyl records and doing things the old ways. And perhaps we have a younger crowd that has really embraced technology, such as yourself. For some of your peers in the music industry who have yet to dive into technology, is there a playbook or process that you feel like recommending? In other words, how do we bridge the digital divide in the music world?
It's funny that you say you have to dive into technology. I think that people do find innovative ways to make their music, even if they're doing traditional kinds of music recording, like for example guitar, drums. I feel that even in the recording process, people are coming up with new and modern ways of recording that. So personally, I find at the end of the day, it's a matter of taste. And even if you're making modern pop sounds like myself, I love to have traditional instruments in it. It's just how I like to hear it. I feel that it only becomes a problem, or it feels like a divide, which it does sometimes, when people are talking about music, thinking that there's just one way of doing it best. I don't know if you've heard conversations like that where people are just saying, oh, there is only one best microphone or best recorder or best system. And I feel that's just so unproductive. It's just a terrible way to talk about music. It's very limiting. It limits your own, abilities as well. So that's the only time that it becomes a problem, when people start fighting over that. Because that's not true at all. There's not just one way of doing it. The good news also I want to say is that there's always going to be a market for everything that you do. So even if you're like a artists and you want to have like traditional music, there's going to be people that love listening to this old school traditional music, and on vinyls and things like that. There's a huge market for that. And even if you're doing like sync music, which is for TV and film, there is a huge market of people like that looking for that kind of music. So yeah, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what kind of music you want to make. Just make it. Someone's going to listen to it.
Totally agree. You got to play to your strengths too, in a sense, right? If there are people that love their older school tools, let's call them that way, that's fine, I suppose. But there's one tool that is emerging in the world of business these days that everybody talks about, and it's generative artificial intelligence. And I bring that up in essentially all my podcasts because it's so topical. And I think although this specific episode will air sometime in September, I think it's still going to be an important point to discuss. Are you personally worried or excited by the use of Gen AI in the music industry? And how do you or will you use this new technology in your music career?
Yeah, so generative AI, that's a great topic. And actually, I heard it in your previous podcast episodes. I love that you're talking about this. It is really, really exciting. I've seen a lot of different apps come up recently about how you can, use AI to create all kinds of things that help with songwriting. Like, for example, I tried an app that, you can make chords, you can sort of like generate chords for songwriting. I used that, but when I used it, it wasn't very useful because the chords that they came up with were way too complicated for my kind of songwriting. So I just ended up not using it. There is another software that's new that is pretty exciting. It's basically a browser-based app that uses AI and then takes in prompts from yourself. Like you'll type in prompts and then it'll kind of create a track. So it's really like ChatGPT in a digital audio workstation. It's quite mind-blowing. Yeah, I'm still gonna take some time to explore that because it seems very complicated, but apparently it has a lot of potential to help you with like creating a demo track from scratch. If you're not a producer and you want to like have something to start with, then that would be great. So I definitely want to see how that can help me. But personally, whether I'm worried or excited, I wouldn't say that I'm worried necessarily. Maybe I just have a very optimistic view on the world, but I think that, tools are here to help us. They're not here to replace us. I think that when you have a tool that makes it easier for you to do something, then you can spend your time doing something else that's, more difficult. So yeah. And also the way I write music at the moment is it's very relational. I do have a songwriting group that I work with, and at the end of the day, it is better to just have like people with their respective talents and abilities come together and create something. Like the product that you have is so much better than if I was just to do it by myself with my limited skills. If I can, I'll just write with other people anyway. So yeah, I think the tools will help me, but at the end of the day, I still have the way that I work and it works really well. So I'm not really worried.
That makes sense. And as a side note, when I created a little intro music for the podcast, I tried some Gen AI software tools, and
Nice.
one was actually pretty decent. But actually, when I heard it, I was like, "Hey, I can do it," and actually prompted me to go off and do it myself. So hopefully, we get a spirit of competition to outdo the robots, so to say. I'm joking, of course.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad you could do that.
Thank you. Now, switching a little bit in terms of you other career that you have. First of all, you are digitally native, right? Technology
Mhm.
isn't something difficult for you to use. Yet you work at Airboxr as a community builder in the e-commerce space. You must see incredibly fast changes in the market, changes in tools and business models. So how do you keep up with these changes, and how do you build your knowledge bank?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's true that when you work in the startup world, as I'm sure you've also learned since joining the startup world, just there's so many things to keep up with. You go on Twitter, everyone's tweeting about some new thing, and it can get a lot. It takes a lot of bandwidth actually to sift through all this stuff. But I guess for me, I try to stay curious. I like to get recommendations from people that I know are doing things that um are related to me. So, it becomes more relevant. It's sort of like filtered already, whether or not I'll be interested in that. And yeah, I guess I feel like as long as you're curious, you will be able to try and discover all these new apps and new tools, and they can help you. It's just that there is a lot of bandwidth. And so for me personally, like when it starts to feel like it's a chore, then I just stop doing it. I feel like discovery of tools should be fun and helpful. It shouldn't feel like extra work. You know what I mean? So I'll just do it when, I feel like it. And then if it just becomes too much, I just stop.
That's a great point, and I think the ability to self-regulate when learning new skills and new tools is extremely important, because it's very easy to get frustrated when things aren't immediate and overly clear, and completely take your point about making sure that you are giving it 100%, but the moment that you feel you need to step out, you do that. And I think that's very helpful for people that are trying to change careers. So look at challenging themselves into a new field, not to have the approach they can just get it done right away. I think it takes time, it takes grit, and it takes the ability to take some punches, right? And
Yeah.
so as you were essentially juggling, two careers, two very different careers. I mean, I'm sure there's a certain amount of creativity in your work as a community manager, but I think most of your creativity is going into the music side of things. But are you finding some lessons that you're learning from a business perspective in pursuing one career, seeping over into the other career, and vice versa? The sort of cross pollination of skills and experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great. Personally, I felt that moving to moving into tech was always a conscious choice for me, that I wanted to bring my, I guess, business ability to another level with my music. And that was kind of the main reason why I even looked for work in this field in the startup environment. And that's because I had already set out for myself how I wanted to make music, which at the end of the day is very entrepreneurial. It's very, like I run everything. I make sure I'm in control of my creative, all my product, my contracts, all this stuff. And so honestly, working in a startup, it has pretty much all the skills that I need and more, because I have more opportunities working in a startup to, talk to customers, partner with other companies, do content. All there's just like new things that I can do, which really stretch my ability in something which I was quite, I guess, limited in doing for music. And so it's just so much more exciting. I don't feel like what I'm doing is a chore or is boring or repetitive. I always need to be challenged, creatively, and also just on a daily basis. I don't want to feel like I'm bored. So yeah, I feel like joining a startup has just been the best thing.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, I hope that people will see it as an opportunity, like if somebody wants to switch over into a new thing, they can see how the work that you're doing is actually going to help you in doing what you also want to do. And that's how you guys, I guess, you synergize yourself, and you also take care of yourself, your mental health, you don't burn out, and you just balance all the things that you need to do and you want to do. And I feel like that's the life hack. That's the key to success in life, I think. Like just balancing everything and then staying happy and continuing to sustain what you want to do. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I completely agree, and I get your point. But one thing I wanted to bring up to your attention is the fact that in traditional education, people get conditioned to specialize themselves into a certain role, a certain type of job, and even within a job, often they tend to focus on a simple task. When I started my career, that was very much the view that I had. It's like I had to stay on top of all the minutiae and the details of the sector I was in, and I never really had the time to raise my head and look at what's happening around. However, your experience is quite the opposite. Is the fact that you've been able to straddle across two worlds, but you're actually gaining something professionally from both of them. So that's very reassuring. But was that something that you naturally were pursuing with a clear vision, or did you see some peers do something like this, or did it happen casually?
Mm. Yeah, you brought up a really important point, and you're absolutely right. Most people, I think, would be conditioned into thinking that you only have to do the one thing you specialize in, and that's it, right? Like that's how you get paid well, that's how you get benefits. There's a system and it works. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a little scary to be doing something that's not in that system. Um, just because you don't have as much security and you don't have, you don't know, I don't know if my job is going to last me for the next, 5 years, 10 years, maybe not, right? So it's a very seize the moment kind of philosophy that I guess you have to have if you want to do something like what I'm doing. And then it becomes a matter of what do you want to get out of what you're doing? What do you want to get out of work, out of life, If you need some stability and security, And now we're getting into real deep topics. How did we get here?
I love those.
but these are the important life questions, right? Like if you need stability and security, then well, firstly, I think the music industry is probably not the safest bet. Sorry, everybody. Just this is my advice. Think twice before you go into the music industry. But if you can do that, it's very fulfilling. Personally, I think that it's exciting to be at kind of like the forefront of new technology, of modern ways of working. Even the way that I'm doing music at the moment is quite new and modern, in the sense that I don't have the traditional, like I'm still signed to a record label, or I'm still like working shows and tours and things like that. I've created a different way of doing music for myself that I can do online, that I can work remotely from. I have people supporting me through online subscription, very much like a SaaS product. So it's just a very different business model that actually I started before I joined tech, and that's why you can see that there's so much synergy. And yeah, so I guess it's just like if you're the kind of person that wants to keep finding new ways or better ways of doing things that make you happy, this would not be a problem, But yeah, it depends on your values. It depends on what you need in life. People's values change over time too. Maybe, I'm getting older. Maybe in 5 years, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I just want to settle down. Who knows? But yeah, you gotta go for what you want in your life. And yeah, sometimes you gotta seize the moment as well. So just do it. Otherwise, you'll regret it, right?
That's a great point. And I mean, you're proof of the fact that it is possible to do that and not to be scared about taking some risks. And so, Salima, when you look ahead, do you expect to transition your own career or careers into something else? And what is your own expectation of the future development of, generally technology influencing your expectations, if at all? And where I'm coming at from this is the fact that I strongly feel that if people start looking at careers not just as a single path, but actually as a network of potential steps, it makes it a lot easier to adjust to change, which is the biggest challenge we all have, I think. But specifically for your own self, I mean, when you started looking ahead, what's the road ahead for you like?
Oh, well, I'm glad you're asking me because I don't think I've asked myself this question yet.
Oh, it's a good chance now.
Yes, now I can think about it. I think working in the music industry, I was in a very sort of like I can only see two steps ahead of me. And that was a frame of mind that I think affected me and not in a good way. So when I was full-time performing for 5 years, couldn't see past my next paycheck and I couldn't plan. That's not good for, I think, your mental health. It's not good for your sense of self-worth. And moving to tech has really improved that part for me. Now I have like a fixed income. I can figure out what I'm going to do in a year. And so I've slowly started to think about planning. I know that sounds crazy because some people are, they plan their whole lives, and I'm just like, what do I do tomorrow? But I think planning is great. I love it. I would recommend it to anybody. Plan your life. It's great. But also be open to opportunities. And I guess what I want to say is that you also can't predict everything that happens. Like, for example, I say that I might not have this startup job in a few years, but similarly, if you had a very specialized role in a big company at any time, you might also not have that job, right?
Absolutely.
Right? You don't know. And what you I guess you want to do, the only thing you can do is just to be as prepared as you possibly can. Just have as many skills as you can, or like keep your opportunities open. Just make sure that you're not kind of pigeonholed or like stuck in one area, because if something happens, then you have a plan B. I guess that's what you should do. That's the only way to cope with how the world changes all the time. Did I even ask you a question? Let me think about it.
I think you've set out the way you're going about thinking potentially your next steps. Although by the sounds of it, you haven't quite got there, and I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think you're
Mm.
far more advanced in your thinking than I ever was at your age. And
I have a thought actually I wanted to share about this. I know that
please,
in the future, the work that I want to do, I still want it to be remote. I still want to have a lot of autonomy and flexibility and freedom. And I also want to be making lots of money. So so that's my Santa Christmas wish list. Please Santa, deliver this future for me. Thank you.
and I'm gonna wish you all the best. I'm sure you'll get there. And maybe we'll do another episode of the podcast in a few years, and you'll be able
Yeah,
to confirm all these achievements. Salima,
that'd be
it's been
awesome.
wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. I loved hearing about your careers. I loved hearing about your mindset and your approach and your experience. So, if
Thank
people
you.
want to find out more about you, what's the best way to reach you?
Okay, so there are two different websites that you can go to. For my music, my artist name is Sasha M. So the website is whoissasham.com. That's Sasha with a S, Sasha. And you can find all about, I guess, the work that I do, the songs I have, the music videos I've been making. My EP launch is coming out soon this year, fingers crossed. So finally there'll be a body of work. And yeah, and also how you can support if if you like what I'm doing, you're interested in supporting an independent artist, then my Patreon is on there. And aside from that, if you want to know more about my work, my startup life, and my remote working stuff, then you can go on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is Salima Nadira. That's SalimaNadira. And you can find me there. And I will love to chat.
Fabulous. Salima, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Mauricio. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that was great. Salima's experience was really interesting, and I hope you'll enjoy this week's episode of TSF9. Till next time, stay cool, stay positive.